Hi, Pisces. Welcome to your November 2018 Astro Update. It's Raina here. And November is very noteworthy for all the transits that are occurring, but especially for two big ones. I think also for you because the sun is in a fellow water sign for the first few weeks, that this is really a great time because the sun forms a trine to you. That's an easy flowing aspect, and that can make you feel like things are running more smoothly. As the month begins, the sun is in the 9th house, which is the house of expansion, the house of higher learning, things to expand your mind, to expand your horizons. It's the house of foreign travel, and it's the house of God, and that's expanding your spirit. And Jupiter rules this house in the universal chart, and Jupiter is your ruler as well. I assume that because Jupiter is an ancient ruler of Pisces, it's kind of out of the picture, but from what I understand in reading further, it still is considered an influence. So you have some affinity to this. And of course, the house that you rule, the 12th house, is also a spiritual house. So this kind of influence is definitely up your alley. And at the same time the sun is here, we have Mars in Aquarius in your 12th house that you rule. So, in both of these houses that are connected to spiritual matters, we have two personal planets. And so you may be really in contact with some kind of spiritual practice. Maybe you're doing some kind of meditation. I don't know about if it would be a retreat or perhaps training with yoga or taking a lot of yoga classes. But that might be kind of what is happening as we enter the month of November. And on the 6th, Uranus, which is already in retrograde, goes back into your second house in the sign of Aries. So for 7 years, when you had Uranus and Aries in that second house, Pisces, you may have felt like that your money situation was all over the map, or you couldn't perfectly predict when you were going to get paid. Maybe you were doing a lot of cobbling together sources of income in order to just keep in order to make a certain amount of money each week or each month. And now we're seeing a little bit more of that. Now we are in the holiday season, so this could simply be that you are taking on a certain seasonal type of work that has strange hours, or just you're not getting paid in a certain way, and like a weekly paycheck, because Uranus can be erratic and it can be unpredictable. So usually, and especially if you're working for somebody else, you tend to get paid every week or every 2 weeks. And this may throw things up into the air again, in addition to what you've experienced in the past. But this is just temporary, and sometime in early 2019, Uranus will leave this sector for good. So this is kind of the 7th and the 8th is what I was hinting at when I was talking about this kind of game-changing energy in November, because on November 7th, the North Node goes into Cancer. So here is another water sign energy. And for you, Pisces, this is in the 5th house of romance, of creativity. And both of these things, I think, are near and dear to your heart. Of course, we could say most everybody, right? But Pisces is a very romantic sign in its own way, in its own dreamy way, and definitely creative. And usually Pisces people have some talent, I think, in the area of creativity, whether it's writing poetry, or I would include entertainment, or I don't even like the word entertainment, but some sort of being able to play a musical instrument well, or singing, or anything, dancing, who knows. So this could be very helpful for you to have the North Node in Cancer entering on the 7th for 18 months, because the North Node is your destiny. And although it's only a transit, it is kind of like divine timing as far as I'm concerned, that right now on your path in this lifetime, that certain things that are connected to the 5th house may be destined to happen. One of them could possibly be meeting your soulmate. I always recommend this book called Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, and I think I'm going to read it again because I've read it several times. And he has a follow-up book too called Destiny of Souls. But he went and regressed people hypnotically, and they were talking about what they were doing in between lifetimes, and they were planning certain events that were going to occur in their next incarnation. And so this is how I see the North Node. Now, somebody else may see it differently, but I see it as these things that are destined to happen that if we're not aware of it, we may think that they are just lucky breaks, or we just happen to experience certain things, but they were meant to be there all along. And I almost think that they can't help but happen. Like, I wonder if you were meant to meet a certain person, if it's possible for you not to meet that person. I don't have the answer to that question. I'm actually just asking it. But basically, what this means, why I'm bringing this up, is because I really do believe in free will. And destiny seems like your fate is etched in stone. And it would just simply be that some things are fated, that are designed by you before this lifetime even begins, and you forget about them. And then they get activated because of certain periods of time in your life. I'm just thinking out loud here. So that's exciting, because if you're looking for love, Pisces, you may feel in your heart of hearts, because you're naturally very intuitive, that there is somebody out there, I was going to say with your name on them, somebody out there for you, and you may have met some wonderful people, and you may have even had relationships with them, but you knew that it was not the one. And yet you weren't sure when you were going to meet this person. Maybe it'll be in this time frame. And then the very next day, Jupiter goes into Sagittarius in your 10th house of career. Now, I feel that when Saturn was in Sagittarius, and this was until late in 2017, in December of 2017, that you had good fortune with that as well. Because even though Saturn gets a bad rap, it does rule the 10th house. So it is all about those issues, including, having the discipline and the kind of, how would I put it? The kind of, I was going to say the drive, but that's more like Mars. Having this sort of, and even vision for your life, determination to succeed, the ambition to succeed, but the seriousness, taking yourself seriously to be able to go after what you want, and to do so methodically. All of these things combine to produce a lot of ambition in this house of ambition and career success. So for Pisces, you experience this for around 3 years. Jupiter is about expansion, so giving you more opportunities. And Jupiter is about lucky breaks. Again, do we make our luck or does it just randomly occur? I'm not going to get into that, but I just think that it can align you for success by providing as many potential doorways as possible. And I have more on Jupiter in Sagittarius in your 10th house in a separate video, so check out my channel if you're interested. But, the way I wrote this down, I should have mentioned that on the 7th, the day that the North Node goes into Cancer, you have a new moon in Scorpio in that 9th house, the God house. So that just kind of reiterates what I already talked about with the sun there, that there's this real emphasis on spiritual matters, maybe university matters, if that's something that interests you and you're trying to get into a college, that might be a time when you get your acceptance letter or something like that. On the 15th, Mars goes into your sign. So that makes you much more energetic, even, like physically, because the first house can be the body. And for Pisces, this gives you a real shot in the arm because you tend to be kind of, when you're trying to make something happen, you tend to do so in a very indirect manner. And this can make you much more forceful, but because you're naturally very gentle, it can be a good combination. You're going to want to promote yourself even more so during this time. And the very next day, Venus goes direct in Libra, which is your 8th house, on the same day that Mercury goes retrograde. So we're like trying to have this forward movement, and then we have another retrograde. This is 2018 in a nutshell. With Venus retrograde in your 8th house, this could pave the way for some kind of money that you have been waiting on, and this could be even in the form of a loan or an inheritance to kind of materialize. There may have been something along those lines with the 9th and now 8th houses revisited during the retrograde, and now it's direct. And Mercury, the next day, retrograding in the 10th house, for people that have been kind of interviewing for a position, they may ask you to come back for another interview. There may be something related to you rethinking something career-wise. Maybe it's the path that you're on. Now, remember, we have all this career stuff happening. And because Jupiter is now in this sector, you may have lots of opportunities and you don't have to just settle on one thing. There could be some kind of snafu that's related to a career matter, a contract that's connected to your career. So again, these are things that are very temporary. Don't sweat the small stuff. On the 22nd, the sun goes into that house as well. So what do we have here? We have the sun in the 10th. We have Mercury retrograding in the 10th. And we have Jupiter in that 10th house. That's pretty awesome. And on the very same day, we have the full moon in the opposite sign, in the opposite house, the 4th house of home and family. So this polarity between the 10th and the 4th houses has to do with home versus career and, which one is going to win out. Actually, if you think about it, neither should win out. There should be some kind of adjustment so that if you're somebody who's raising a family, you're able to take care of your child in the way that feels comfortable for you, but still not neglect all the wonderful things that are happening in your career. Because since there's such an emphasis right at this moment on career matters, you may feel that pull in the opposite direction and have to make some sort of adjustments. The full moon in the fourth house can be maybe, for some people, it's that you're ending raising your children. Maybe this is like already, this was planned well in advance, that you were going to raise your children at home yourself for the first few years, and now you're getting back into the workforce. And definitely the Jupiter in Sagittarius transit in the 10th house supports that. And it's not that you're giving something up. The full moon can be endings, but it can be like a culmination. It's like, this is the apex. This is everything is coming to a conclusion. And that was a wonderful slice of my life. And now I'm ready to do these things. Now I'm ready to be more in the world again. And the sun in the 10th house is you shining your light and other people seeing you. On the 24th, Neptune goes direct in the first house of the self. And Neptune has been in your sign, Pisces, for how many years now? Probably, I think about 6. I'm not exactly sure. I think it was 2012. But in any case, it's been quite a while. And it's going to be quite a while. I think it's going to be 2026 or something. I'm not entirely sure about that. But when Neptune first went retrograde several months ago, it was almost like ripping off the mask. You may have felt exposed in some way because the first house is the house of the self. And some illusions that you may have had about yourself and maybe what other people thought of you may have come home to kind of like give you a reality check of sorts. And it may have been a little bit disappointing because sometimes we think people perceive us in a way that they really don't. And that can be quite disheartening if it's not something as positive as we would like. Now that Neptune is direct, you can be more idealistic about yourself. And, whenever I read about the influence of Neptune online, it seems like more times than not, they're mentioning negative things. But one of the positive traits or influences of Neptune is that it can make the person very idealistic and very connected to spirit, which to me is the ultimate in idealism, because it's understanding that whatever we perceive right now is the worldly version of what can be. And I don't separate it from spirituality to have this sense of idealism. And so you may be able to see yourself as the greatest version of yourself, even if, technically you might not be there yet. And this is very important for Pisces because you do tend to sometimes, I think, not give yourself enough credit and not see all of the great things about yourself. And maybe you doubt yourself a little bit too often. So I honestly believe this can give you a sense of confidence. As long as you are tied into that sense of not just looking at the world as it is, but how you want it to be. Because there are some of you out there, some Pisces, I'm speaking specifically of the sun sign, that have a tendency to mimic other signs. And I actually read that in a book somewhere, that the fact that Pisces is the last sign, they can be any of the other signs. And I have seen Pisces that seem more like Sagittarians or Leos or Virgos, where they're very critical and even maybe aggressive in some cases, where you would think they were in Aries. But in any case, if you can kind of have that sense of the highest version of yourself and kind of go through life with that. Who knows what kind of good things you can attract. And speaking of attracting good things, obviously we are talking about this transit of Jupiter in Sagittarius, and because you're, ruled in the ancient sense, but also in some of my research, continuing to be ruled by Jupiter, that has a special connection to you. And for you, this is in the 10th house of career. So that seems to be like the highlight, and along with having this North Node transiting the 5th house. So very awesome, Pisces. And obviously this is a general forecast. And if you'd like something that is specific to you in your exact degree of Pisces Sun or Rising, check my links below. Have a great November, Pisces. Bye.